All right, welcome back. This is the rolling coverage of Decision 2022. Before we continue with the conversation with my guests here in studio, I want us to cross over live to Bomas of Kenya, where a few minutes ago, the IEBC commissioners gave a statement, and the chairman, Wafula Chebukati, of course, giving a review of the process ongoing at the Bomas of Kenya in terms of how the returning officers are processed, and those documents as well are processed to optimize, of course, the efficiency and reduce the time that is used to look at the tally and, of course, verify those documents. Leila Mohammed has been keeping tabs there. Leila, just give us a sense of what is happening. We saw a bit of commotion when Mr. Chebukati told those who are not supposed to be there to move out of the amphitheater. Give us a sense of what was said and why this is important so far. And have people moved out of the amphitheater?
Well, before I talk about his first declaration, let's talk about what is happening on the other side. The Azimio team now just getting to sit down, but their chief agents seeking an audience with the chairperson and the team at the IEBC. And if you had seen our pictures earlier, they were quite a disappointed lot. They began by almost expressing their disappointment with that decision loudly. They made consultations at that specific door. People like the Honorable Wanga and her colleagues just trying to dispute that decision made by the IEBC. The people you're seeing seated and lining up, heading into where Wafula Chebukati and his team of commissioners are seated, are returning officers. Why are they there? They are going to do what was initially meant to be the last process of this verification before those results from those Form 34As and Form 34Bs can be announced. Why is this happening? This is because the Wafula Chebukati and team have sat down and discussed on the pace in which whatever is going on the floor of this tallying center is, and the speed and how this will eventually affect when and how soon he will be able to announce the winner of this presidential race. He says that after a serious analysis, it has been found that one returning officer is spending at least 3 to 4 hours on this floor, all his documentation or all her documentation being verified by a team from the IEBC. He himself also going through those numbers, as well as observers and the 4 critical agents of those 4 presidential candidates. So he says that some of them have been seated and have made home from the other side of this aisle for the last 3 days, some having arrived here as early as Wednesday and having to sit in the cold floors for the last almost 72 hours, a matter that he says is something of concern, and that is why they have decided to skip some of those and go to the end before coming back now to the initial process. And that is why the Azimio One Kenya Alliance team is unhappy, because they are saying that they are not sure this is how the law should be followed for them. They say IBC should be a stickler to the rules that were created out of that case in 2017. However, if I can just take you back to how things happen, once they are done at the constituency and the county levels, they travel here physically with those forms, whether in bags or in boxes or in however shape they carry them. They have to bring them here physically and announce their arrival. They have an emergency exit where they access this tallying center from, and they take their seats on the other side of the aisle, waiting in line for any of these tables to be clear for them to walk in here one by one. Wafula Chebukati saying that as at this morning, they had about 260 returning officers, and also saying that up until now, 124 of them are in the queue, and that was a matter of concern for the IEBC. And as a result of what he is calling a flaw, he has made an executive decision to go to the end before coming back to the initial process, which would require them now to look at those documents from the computer systems and those that have already been downloaded here, and that is the matter which Azimio team is concerned about. However, they're saying in order to be able to meet the deadline, we just have this Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and another Tuesday, exactly 7 days after the polling was done and conducted. And he says, with the hours moving as fast as possible and waiting for no man, he and his team are fearful that they may not be in a position to beat that deadline and most likely cause what can be termed as an unconstitutional affair. Thereafter, being done with the chairperson, they will be heading to the ICT desk for verification of those documents. Then the presidential agents will be given copies of those forms. Thereafter, they will place the original documents at the table for verification, and this is how Chebukati and his team require the process to go on at this particular moment in time. According to Professor Gulia, who also spoke during this press briefing, he spoke about issuing other changes, and that is what you were talking about, Zainab, in terms of who is allowed within the precincts of this vicinity. You can see that at the moment there's quite a large number of people. Many of them are just members of parliament belonging to the various political groupings, and such a large figure is what the IEBC now says they would require to reduce those numbers to the bare minimums and just allow the people who are critical to this process to be here. Also a matter that was shouted down by the Azimio side, them claiming that it is their right to be here and to witness this process. Yesterday, such large numbers witnessed a lot of drama around this table, and some of those scenes is possibly why the IEBC team now says they would just like the presidential agents to be on the floor or on the aisles if they're not doing anything significant there. Their aides are also allowed into this vicinity. The chief and deputy chief agents will be also allowed here, and the clerks verifying those documents, including the returning officers from the IEBC who are now waiting in line to hand over their documentation before going to the ICT desks. And also they have given instructions to the police right at the main gate of Bomas of Kenya, not only the entrance of this tallying hall, that anyone with or without an accreditation for this hall, if you do not play a critical role from the political class, then they will be asking the police to not allow in any of those political players who ideally in Wafula Chebukati and his team's eyes may not do much in terms of aiding the verification process and the tallying that is ongoing, and that is why some of those crowds were shouting in dispute of that requirement. Earlier we had seen there were less and less of them here, having known that majority of them had already been denied access into this facility. IEBC noting that it's quite unfortunate that the process that they had hoped to end quite earlier in the week, Wafula Chebukati promising Kenyans that before the 7-day window that is provided in law lapses, then Kenyans would be able to know how those numbers look like and whether or not the 50+1 requirement in law or the availability of someone reaching over 25% in 25 or 26 counties has been achieved. So it's been a slow and winding process. The tables have increased, if I can just count, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 desks, and with each hour passing, IEBC requires that you can basically just follow what they're doing. They add on more desks so that they can make the process go as fast and smooth as possible. However, with the timelines that Wafula Chebukati has given, a 3-hour window for each returning officer of the 290 constituencies is something that the Commission is worried about. Remember, since receiving their first documentation from the returning officer of Webuye East, they have not left this vicinity. It's been an all day and all night, a 24-hour system. However, even as they work round the clock, he still feels they may not be able to beat the deadline for next week. Before Tuesday, Kenyans within the law are expected to know what will be the result of this decision 2022. The police there just standing on guard, and the Azimio team looking like they are engaging with each other on how best they can send their chief agencies to confer whatever issues they have with that decision. But it seems that at the moment everyone is seated and is calm, even as we await if IEBC will execute that order to remove any official who is not playing a critical role within this vicinity, to leave and just leave the observers, the diplomats who are also allowed here, the IEBC officials. And of course, for a moment, even the media was holding on to its collective breath when they said everyone else who is not required, but the media has been allowed to sit in one corner so that we can be able to bring this to you live. Zainab.
Thank you for that run-through of exactly what is happening at the National Tallying Center at the Bomas of Kenya. Those pictures are coming to us live. You can see the activity happening then.